Today on Inspired Money.
Sometimes you need to jump. Calculatively, yes. Strategically, yes. But sometimes there are things you just can't calculate. You just have to go with that gut feeling. Like that trip across the U.S., right? Like nothing pointed to it being possible. However, I can say today, we did it. And it was built on that gut feeling that I got at that time, like this is something you need to do.
This is episode 101 with entrepreneur and host of 12 Min Convos podcast, Engel Jones. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to help each other to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together make the world a better place. On Inspired Money, the word goal comes up pretty frequently. As I'm recording this, we're well into the second half of the year. Have you set a goal for the next 3, 4, 5 months? Think about it. Be intentional and write it down. I want to challenge you to achieve a specific goal in the next 3 to 6 months. It can be big or small. Today's guest is Engel Jones, and he's big on goals. He's set some really big ones. He's the host of 12-Minute Convos, where I was a guest when I first launched Inspired Money. And get this, he recently celebrated 2,400 episodes. To give you a little perspective, that's in 3.5 years, which averages out to 685 episodes per year. That's 57 per month, or nearly 2 per day. In this episode, you'll learn the trials and tribulations of setting and working toward a big, audacious goal, Engel's path to becoming debt-free, and why that's important to his family, masterminds, the importance of investing in yourself, and more. Now, let's get inspired with Engel Jones. Engel Jones, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
I remember having, there were 2 piggy banks. They were like these plastic molded piggy banks, just about like 3 feet tall, with one incision big enough for coins. And of course, if you folded the dollar bill, you could stick that in there. And I remember one time we were short on cash and we were going in there, but we had to use like a spoon to get it out because cutting it wasn't an option. There wasn't like a turn knob to the bottom of it that the modern ones have. So we had to like fish them, like stick it in and pull it out. And yeah, I remember that, my friend. But having the piggy bank was, I guess, it connected to being able to take money out. Yeah.
Was that tough times that you needed to get the money out, or was that just as a kid and you were ready to buy something?
Yeah, I think as a kid, we were ready to, as a child being, wanting to get something at the local shop and not having the money, but having the option of what we've saved, like loose change, putting it in there. Yeah, it's a really cool memory. I love that you asked this question.
So it's about saving and then spending eventually.
Yeah, I guess, too, it's about not planning properly as well to be able to spend, yeah? Because I think you shouldn't really have to go into the savings for snacks. It should have had a snack fund.
You were young. I mean, it's okay.
I agree. But come on, I'm the goal setting guy. It's not okay. I should have that planned. And that's the way I think.
Well, maybe that was the process that got you to where you are, because that was a valuable lesson.
Definitely so, my friend. Definitely so. I believe success is built on the foundation of failures. And I do failures in air quotes because it's a word I don't like using, but the reality of it is that I didn't achieve the thing I set out to do. However, it's now the foundation for me being able to do more. So you're right, yeah.
Engel, you're on the island of Trinidad, and you've interviewed over 2,300 people, an extraordinary feat. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Are there any clues that might reveal like what it is that you're doing today?
So one of the questions I've asked everyone I've interviewed is what was their favorite song when they were 12 years old? And that had me look into what was my favorite song when I was 12 years old. And interestingly enough, it was a song by a gospel artist, Helen Baylor, Can You Reach My Friend? And I think that definitely represents a clue as to the core of who I am from a child, in that it's my passion to have these conversations that then open up others to have the conversation with themselves on who they can be or what they can be or how they've been who they are. So I think that's one of the clues in there right there, Andrew.
So with that song, Can You Reach My Friend, is what you're doing in conducting these many, many podcast interviews with people all over the world. Are you just trying to build more friends and reach out to more people?
Well, the goal is newly stated. It's the acronym SUN and FUN. And the SUN stands for sharing unique narratives, and FUN, fostering unlimited networks. The SUN part is definitely something I'm intrigued by. I've had so many conversations and I'm still fascinated by the uniqueness of each person's narrative. The fostering unlimited networks, again, I love connecting people with other people. That's how you build friendships. The reason I'm doing the podcast is to share with others how they can have a conversation, because it is challenging to have conversations, folks. Believe me, I've had some tough ones. And I've had some great ones. However, what I've found is if there are things we can jump over, which are usually some things we believe that others should believe, and we can just understand that and respect without judgment, what they believe is what they believe, then I believe it creates a platform for networking that's beneficial to humanity.
Clearly, it sounds like what you're doing is evolving. And I love the SUN and FUN acronym. Can you take us back to the day or the time before you decided to embark on interviewing so many people? And when you do it in a very tight period of time. You always have these goals. I'm going to do 800 interviews in the next few weeks or something like that. What was the spark or the idea, and what was your original vision, since it has been evolving over time?
I would say the core of it has been to connect with amazing people. And I love great conversations. You look back at my episodes or listen to my early episodes, you hear the intros. I love great conversations. And, it started in a really amazing way. I was a part of a virtual online group called View from the Top community, led by Aaron Walker. Interestingly enough, I just interviewed him the second time around. But what happened in there is I found that in the online space, there was not the conversation piece. And I decided within the group, with his permission, to create something where we could interchange conversations. Now, one of the templates was, instead of doing a 15-minute conversation, I would do a 12-minute conversation, because time is of the essence. And when you ask for 15 minutes, it doesn't sound as good as if it's 12 minutes. Yeah, you could agree with that, right, Andrew?
Well, it reminds me of the movie when they're talking about 7-minute abs. And they say, well, if there's 7-minute abs, I'm going to come out with 6-minute abs. Because if you see the two on the shelf, which one are you going to grab?
And for me, with the money concept as well, it's like 197 versus $200. Yeah, the 197 is the catch. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'll go for the one. It's somewhere psychologically, it doesn't hold the same value. But I did that, and we started having these amazing conversations within the group. And I decided, like after attempting to do a podcast with my wife, where I forcibly said to her she should do a podcast because she wrote a book and she eventually walked away from that. I decided I was going to do my podcast, and the 12-minute convos was born on March 31st, 2016. The first episode was released, and the goal setting part, as you asked about, it came about because there was this guy I was listening to, Johnny Dumas, and I was fascinated by his process and the conversations he was having. So I thought, for me to be able to do what he's done by having these conversations, to be such a skillful interviewer, I would need to do the conversations. And thus, the goal was born, to have 1,585 conversations in 1 year. Not in 1 year, in 9 months, yeah? From March 31st to December. I'll tell you, Andrew, do you want me to go into the stats of what happened?
Absolutely.
Oh my, from March to September 2016, I recorded 76 episodes. By this time, I was going to give up. And I was at an event held by Dan Miller called Coaching with Excellence. And while there, it felt as though like this lightning bolt just struck me. And the words I heard were, you should not give up. You should do what you said you were going to do. And for a bit, I thought about it. I had my trusty yellow pad next to me, just like I do right now. And I started calculating what would be necessary. So I would have September to December to have 1,509 conversations. And, the math seemed simple until I got back. And in the first month from September to October, I had 77 conversations. And at that point, I was about to give up again, but I decided not to. And, hope presented gifts. In the second month, I had 286 conversations. And then momentum built. And in the third month, I had 638 conversations, a whopping 1,001. Now, I didn't achieve the goal, but oh my, did I achieve some amazing conversations. And now we've been able to build bridges through meaningful conversations.
What was holding you back in those early months? And what changed that enabled you to build that momentum and continue with that momentum?
It's a great question. I think the thing that was holding me back was, so I would say the day job, first of all, was holding me back. And it's interesting how the day job holds you back because it provides for you, right? But it then gives you a sense of comfort that I'm earning money. I'm good. Yeah. Like I'm getting things that I want to purchase because I'm earning money. But I think stepping away from my job and attending that conference created within me the understanding that there's more that I can do, which is the desire block, right? That desire to do more. And I think I would sum it up to that. Like that was the thing holding me back, as well as myself. Now, setting these goals really helps you, right? Now, of course, I'm a part of an accountability group right here. And I say to these guys, hey, I'm going to have 1,509 conversations in 3 months. And they're all like, are you crazy, Engel?
You are crazy, Engel.
But, I guess, that it's intuition, right? It's that inner voice. It's something that doesn't add up, but then adds up. And I've gone on to do a lot more conversations and build more relationships.
So is the takeaway, once you've set the goal, you have to expect that there are going to be times where it's not easy. You're going to be behind your schedule, but you just have to keep pushing forward and keep at it.
It's interesting because that's definitely one way you can look at it. Another way is, what if it was supposed to be that way in leading to what you can do? Like, technically, having that amount of conversations in the first and second month gave me rest and strengthened me. It's like when you're doing training or muscle building, oh my gosh, the after pain is terrible. But as you rest, you heal. I find it to be pretty amazing that I was able to have 638 conversations in 1 month. But the platform that was set, the momentum, the trend, if you would, that was created by me going into it this way actually worked pretty well. Ideally, I would say, hey, it would have been better if I did 333 conversations every month, right? But it's interesting how the momentum built and the impact that has had on building my brand.
At those points when you felt like you may quit, what is it that kept you going? Like, how did you know to keep at it? Was it the inner voice? Like, what kept you going versus saying, maybe this isn't what I should be doing. Maybe I should try something new.
So the maths side of things, like the Excel sheets, that keeps me going, right? The data side, first of all. So this is plotted into a data sheet, and I'm tracking all the way what is required, and this is the daily part of setting your goal. That's important. I think that kept me afloat, as well as there were signs along the way. There are signs that point you to the direction that the thing that you're doing is the thing you're supposed to be doing. I remember one particular night when I was about to, I felt like I should give up. And Wendy Williams connected with me and she's like, how can I help you? And I was like, I need people. And on that night, Wendy connected with me, no less than 40 people via Facebook, the group chat message option. Like over 40 people, my friend. And it was times like those that really made me feel as though the thing I was doing was more like a destiny type thing than just having conversations, just having conversations.
So you felt like it was, even early on, you felt that you were doing something bigger than just Engel sitting in his room in Trinidad.
Yeah, definitely. And then the impact and the responses, like the way people would react. They'll be like, "Ooh, I love this," and then there were people that were changing things in their brands from the insight part of what we were doing, the connecting the dots, just like you did here, right? Like connecting the dots of the piggy bank. Like now, I'm wondering, I need to get a piggy bank for my two sons because they don't have a piggy bank. They save like dollar bills, but they don't save coins that much. And what is that teaching them? It's very impactful when you resurrect thoughts.
Engel, you talk about Dan Miller, and I know that Dave Ramsey had a big impact on your life. You talked about Aaron Walker. How important is it to have these masterminding groups? Masterminds have been like a recurring theme that I hear talking to my guests on Inspired Money. And I'm curious to hear from you, your personal experience. Like, how did you come to even make the choice to invest in yourself and to do that? Because it is an investment.
Definitely, it was an investment, but one that has the ROI has been like 3,000% if you measure it via, of course, what are your value points? And one of my value points at that time was accountability and finding and learning ways that I could remain balanced on the values that I wanted to focus on. Starting off with Aaron's mastermind, they taught me some amazing things, my friend, like how to take daily account of who you are, and then how to build meaningful relationships, starting with home, and then letting that spiral into the relationships you build for business. Dan Miller, I only had an encounter with him for that event. But then we went on to what Dave Ramsey did, which was really the core component of me meeting these other guys. Money, my friend. Oh, I didn't know it could impact your life this way. The concepts of managing your money and as well being debt free. Like we've been debt free since 2013, I believe it was February, and that has transformed our lives tremendously. And then we were able to see the value in investing in ourselves. So I think that's the full circle connecting the dots to that question. It started with the money part, Andrew, and then it spiraled into, wow, there is value in investing in yourself. Like I could have been paying for my car, like have a really nice car and the car loan, as opposed to not having a car loan, an okay type of car, and investing in myself.
So you did mention earlier that some of your thoughts about the day job, how it holds you back, but at the same time, it offers you comfort. Can you take us back to your sort of money journey?
Sure. It's my pleasure. I entered the workplace, but before that, I worked with my father. So he worked at the same organization I worked at, which is a cement manufacturing company. And he always side hustled. He is a trade man to this day. So he's good. He's good with his hands, right? And we would work with him on like the holidays time. So we'll make money with him, right? Of course, we were paid less because we're the family. However, what he taught us there is the value of working for money, as well as how to side hustle. And I entered the workplace, the same side company, and then I started side hustling. And then I started playing with loans just a bit. Like I took a first loan for my MCSE course, Microsoft Certified System Engineer course. And then I paid that off really quickly because I hated seeing my pay slip being or having this deduction, right? And then I took my first loan for my car. And then I paid that off pretty quickly. And then I bought my first business after selling my first car, bought into a partnership, and we built that business. It was like a service center called the Upper Room Entertainment Center, and ran that business for a few, and played with loans just a bit, right? And then we sold that business. And all the time, always having like a small loan, like, like a $30,000 to $40,000 loan, always bouncing in there, which is really easy. Like you walk into a bank and it's an unsecured loan and you get that. And then in 2012, there was a strike for my company. It was the unions was able to say, hey, we're going to have a 3-month strike and it's legal, right? It's legal action. And we were part of that. It's not going to stay long, though. It'll probably be like a week, and then the management will give in.
This was at the cement company?
This is at the cement company, yeah.
You were working at the same company as your dad?
Yeah. And, at that time, that strike actually went on for 3 months. And the reality of having debt and not working while my wife was working was not a great experience. And it's around that time I encountered Dave Ramsey. I was laying on my floor. My son was there, and the TV was on randomly. And there was this guy, Rabbi Daniel Lapping, that was being interviewed by Benny Hinn on a book he wrote called Thou Shalt Prosper, the 10 Commandments to Making Money. And my ears perked, and I felt like, if there's any time I need to understand how money works, it's now. And I read that book. I got my sister's Kindle and borrowed a friend's card to put it on there to purchase the book. And read that book in a couple of days. And at the end of the book, he said something. He said, all right, so this is the fundamentals. But if you want to know how to manage your money, then check out Dave Ramsey, The Total Money Makeover. And, I bought that book, and that's where things really got going because he gave us the tools and he gave testimonials, from individuals who went through the process. And while my wife wasn't too happy to hear another plan from Engel at that point in time, she read the book, and I'm so thankful that she decided to be part of it as well. And within 11 months, we were able to clear off $217,000. We sold stuff and ate a lot of rice and peas and peas and rice and rice and peas and peas and rice. And then sometimes we had rice and peas. And, we did a few things. She started doing hairdressing for herself. The car was not washed at the car wash. We would wash the car. There was a garden planted. And that then spiraled into me visiting Dave Ramsey for his event, Entre Leadership, to see if it was possible to run a company without debt. At that point, I'm like, oh, this is good for your personal finances, but no way, you can't do this for your business. And that then spiraled into me meeting Aaron Walker. Is that a good summary of it? Was that okay? Did I take too long?
No, that's a great summary. I mean, it sounds like a progression of, I don't know, it's one thing leads to the next, and you're open to walking down that path. Like, you don't always know where it's going to end up, but you're willing to see where it goes.
Yeah, you've done that well. Yeah, that's what I've done. Of course, at that time, I'm not aware that's what I'm doing, right? But in hindsight, I understand now that sometimes you need to jump. Calculatively, yes. Strategically, yes. But sometimes there are things you just can't calculate. You just have to go with that gut feeling, like that trip across the U.S., right? Like, nothing pointed to it being possible. However, I can say today, we did it. And it was built on that gut feeling that I got at that time, like this is something you need to do.
Coming up, we talk about working as a team with your spouse, planning an 80-day road trip, and finding your passion. The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/101. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Engel and other things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Engel talked about taking loans out to fund his business ideas or his Microsoft training. Whether you need to pay off debt faster or just increase your savings rate, here's a tip. If you're looking for a source of quick cash, it might pay to take a look at your belongings first. Most of us have stuff lying around the house that we rarely use and could live without. Why not sell your extra stuff and use those funds to pay down your debts? A good old-fashioned garage sale is normally the cheapest and easiest way to sell your unwanted belongings. Otherwise, try Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. You can also consider selling your items through a consignment shop or through online resellers. Put your profits towards paying down more than your minimum payments, or into an emergency fund, or you can invest it. Not only are you improving your personal balance sheet, but hopefully you can reduce a little clutter too. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. As much as I love listening to podcasts, I wish that they were a two-way street. But your podcast app does not have a way for you to talk back. So I invite you to go to inspiredmoney.fm/15. That's inspiredmoney.fm/15 to schedule a 15-minute call. Be like Lael, who took me up on this. Not only did we have a great conversation over the phone, but we recently met up in person for a drink in New York. I encourage you to do the same. I'd love to hear from you. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. Clearly, you are a dreamer. You're a guy with many ideas, many big ideas. It sounds like your wife, Amanda, has to put up with that. like you run your ideas past her, and there are times when she's like, oh my goodness, Engel, not another idea. Yes. But with the Dave Ramsey paying your debt down, uniquely, you were both on the same page, and it was something that you could do together.
Yeah, definitely. Again, so let's open that up. We're talking about monthly meetings. We're talking about a relationship here of accountability. By no means was it like, yeah, we're doing this and that's it. We're talking about there were small steps that were done and walked consistently to this point. And Amanda, it, as much as I've been the lead on on most of these ideas, she by no means doesn't have a value in that if she says no, that I say yes, because we're connected, right? So if she says no, it's for a very good reason. And if she says no and I say yes, it usually costs me a ton and I lose. And then I have to go back saying, Amanda, you were right. And I dislike that, right? So I listen to when she speaks. And I just want to touch on that. It's very valuable it's been the theme of this week in terms of my wife and the support and what she's brought to the table. As much as I set these huge goals and go for it, by no way would it have been possible for me to accomplish it and get out of it without the pain or the trauma that I could have if I did it by myself.
So it's the value of having a partner to bounce ideas off of, to do things together. And it sounds like when you've got a grand idea and Amanda says yes, then it's all systems go. There's a pretty good chance that things will turn out well.
Yeah, I'm really thankful. I thank God for that woman called Amanda, because could you imagine someone with big goals and no direction? That would have been frightening.
All right, so take me back. I don't know how many interviews you had done, mostly over the internet, and then you had this idea to come to the United States to try to meet as many of those people in person to do a follow-up interview. What was the reaction when you shared that idea with your wife?
So she said to me, she had some questions. She said, okay, so this is how it went. I'm like, Amanda, I have an idea. And then she slowly turns around, right? And in that, it feels like a 1 minute turn around, right? And while she's turning, she says, okay, what's the idea? And of course, I waited for the perfect time to say this, right? And then I said, I want to go meet the people I interviewed on the podcast. And she's like, okay, how are you going to do that? It's like, well, we'll drive. And she's like, okay, how will you get time off from work? Well, I can apply for no pay leave. Okay, Angel, well, let's see how it goes. I'm like, yes, yeah, in my mind, right? I'm like,
that sounds like a maybe. It's a definite maybe.
for me, it's like, yes, it's yes. Because she didn't say flat out, come on, Angel, no, I don't think now is the time for this.
And to put this into context, this is after you've become debt-free. So the money conversation does come into play. She's asking you, how are you going to get out of work? You're saying you're going to take a no-pay leave. And coming to the United States for an extended period of time is not inexpensive.
Oh, no, especially with the Caribbean, like 7 of our TT dollars make $1. So yeah, it's expensive. So then I'm like, okay, well, this is how we'll raise the money. Like in the next 12 days, I'll begin a campaign to raise $48,000. Of course, I'm ahead of Amanda, like decades ahead of her in the planning stages of this, right? Like I've already set the path. I've seen how we may travel. I've looked at videos. I'm in this. I'm like, I'll raise $48,000. The RV is an average of $18,000 to $25,000, right? Somewhere in between there. I'm not too sure. I think it was like 18,000, right? But with gas and with 3 months being out there, we raised $48,000. I had interviewed 1,987 individuals. If each person put $24, I'm in. This is a no-brainer.
I like how you reverse engineered that.
I raised an average of $3,000 in the 12 days.
So then what?
So at that point, where between the ninth and 12th day, the plan is, well, I have some savings and I'll put that up with it to get this going. And instead of doing an RV, what we can do is, and Amanda actually came up with this because at that point we named it 12-min RV Convos, which stands for 12-minute RV Convos. And of course, the RV is in caps locks because it's an RV, yeah? But then when we moved to the rental, Amanda said we'll call it rental vehicle instead. It's like, wow, she's really into this. So we then moved to plan B, which is my two sons wouldn't be able to go on this trip. My mother stepped in and she said she'll take care of them. Of course, she's my number one supporter after Amanda. And then we get in there and we start the journey. Like, we have the rental money put together with my savings. And my belief is once we start moving, we'll be able to raise more money.
And how did that play out? Is that how it worked?
Well, we are back in Trinidad. I like to say we are forward in Trinidad. So we did, get some amazing scenarios that occurred. I had individuals that offered their homes. So where we would have used a car rental, we actually stayed, not a car rental, a hotel rental. We actually stayed by individuals that were on the podcast. So that was a huge saving. And then there were people that did give money along the trip. It's not one of the things I love doing, asking for help. Interestingly enough, there were times when I had to ask for help because we were running out of money. One, based on two scenarios. One, our savings can only be accessed at $200. Or was it 200? No, at $500 per month. So we can only access $500. It's a Forex thing, right? We could only access $500 per month on our account. So even though we had money, we couldn't access it. And that was interesting.
For the sake of the Inspired Money listener, how many states did you visit? How many people did you visit? And I know that it was the US and Canada.
Yeah, so we got through to 48 states and Canada in 80 days. I interviewed via Facebook Live 349 individuals. The goal was 1,001 at that time. And we raised over US like $10,000 in support. And of course, that's measured in places like where we would have stayed, right? Like where we would have paid for a hotel. We then related that to a cost where people bought lunch for us when we met them, where individuals bought a truckload of snacks, road trip snacks, which is always needed, folks. You always need road trip snacks. And again, that was what we summed up to over $10,000 over the course of 80 days.
So you visited with so many people, different states, different regions, two different countries. What were the surprising things that you learned?
And the list goes on. It's another hour of podcast conversation. I've learned, I'll share one thing I've learned is that there's a love that humans share that far surpasses what the news shares. I cannot name enough people over this time span that helped. But I'll give you one person that really stuck out. When we were in Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, there was this woman by the name of Jean Kay. And the drive from Calgary to Vancouver was one of the most amazing experiences ever. It was dreaded by me. I thought, 13 hours. This is the hardest drive that I'll have. And it really felt like an hour.
For an island boy, a 13-hour drive is like
Like never happening.
Unimaginable.
Never happening in my island. It takes me like 3 hours max to get to the other side from one side. Never happening, yeah?
Right. And you'd never drive back and forth that many times in one day.
Of course, we never. 13 hours of driving is just not not necessary. But when we were on that trip, there were times when like we would get to places earlier and we would do rest stops. In Canada, the rest stops aren't as great as the US rest stops. Like, and I'm guessing because they're family oriented, so or they drive from one place to the whatever it is, but the rest stops just aren't as great. And we stayed in a truck rest stop that night because we're ahead of time. And getting to Jean at the scheduled day was not something we wanted to do. We didn't want to impose on her kindness. And Jean was following our journey. The internet in Canada is really great. So we were doing a Facebook Live showing the beautiful mountains of Canada. And she messaged and said, "Hey, I see you guys are in this place, which means you're not too far from us. Please, don't be a stranger. Get in here, get some rest." And again, it speaks to the love. And it speaks to the love that individuals showed to us. Because I had a 12-minute conversation with Jean. However, she connected with me and in a way that I guess deserved love. We got to Jean K's residence, and Jean is treating cancer. She has the chemo bag, and she should not be happy, yeah? She should not be the person that's giving care this way. Like, she has the perfect excuse.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing chemo. But Jean prepares breakfast first. She prepares lunch, and then there's dinner. She opens her home for my guests to come across, to meet, and have a conversation. And Jean gives us a hug every night before we go to bed. Do you know that was the thing we both needed to complete the trip? It was love. Because I left home. Could you imagine driving to locations that you've never been to before and not have a location to go back to that's home?
So did you return home with a greater love for people and humanity?
My friend, I love humanity. I love humanity, and I want to be the ambassador for the conversation that there is hope. Our goal is to help others pursue excellence, hope, and it's there. You know, it's probably not reported enough, but my friend, I'm very sure. Like, I met you, Andrew. Like, you came with the ukulele in New York.
I did.
Those were the things that had really pushed us on. It was love, yeah. I think love is at the core of it.
Engel, through your experience, what do you think the value is of a 12-minute phone conversation compared to a 12-minute in-person conversation?
Oh, that's great. Ooh, I love that question. Whoop, whoop. Best question. Love that. I think they both are connected. What I do, what do we call the community? It's the inspired money. How do you say it at the beginning of the podcast?
I say the inspired moneymakers.
Inspired moneymakers. We have these conversations, and it's virtual. Like, I don't see the individual I'm speaking to, and that's purposefully done because we want it to be an intimate space. So that is valuable in that it's an intimate conversation. You're in my ears, I'm in your ears via voice, and then from there you open up to listening. Then I got to meet these individuals face to face, and the value of that was somewhat the truth, like connecting the dots of truth, that what that person said represents who that person is. And that was the value that I would draw out of it. Meeting face to face, though, you get to hug the person, and you wouldn't believe I'm not a big hugger. But after preparing, so I'm preparing for the conversation I'm having with the person face to face by listening to the 12-minute convo before I meet them. And it's like, hey, it's like a friend that, I've not seen for a while. Hey, and we embrace and we hug because it's that connected. So the both work hand in hand, having that virtual conversation and then meeting them face to face.
Engel, when is your book coming out?
We are working on a comic book currently. I wanted to find a way that would communicate my experiences that would allow other individuals to interact with it. And writing a book is something I've been encouraged to do. However, I like to do things a bit differently sometimes. It's a pet peeve of mine. So we're doing the comic book, and that should be launched pretty soon, I would say. Like, give me 12 weeks, right? But we're working on it. That's Amanda's side. She's an author.
The power
writer.
of 12.
The power of 12. Definitely the power of 12. I love that. Well, I love that, Andrew.
Angel, the power of technology, whether it's podcasting or blogging or a Facebook Live, you're taking advantage of all these things. And that's like the power of living in the 21st century, that you in Trinidad can reach out and make all of these connections. It seems like the power today is not in the technology, but it's the connections that you're making, which is why I wanted to have you on the show. You are one person who understands how to make these connections. In many ways, anyone can do it, but most are not. Would you advise people to emulate you? Because I know when I talked to you initially, when I was on your 12-minute convos, and I asked you, you kind of joked, like, this is not for everyone. Because you were going through this intensive period, doing like 600 interviews in a month or something.
Every time someone asks me if I should, if someone else should do this, my butt muscles immediately speak and say no, because it's part of the process, right? No, I wouldn't suggest anyone do this unless it's tied to yours. And the concept is the power is yours, and yours stands for your own unique, real self. And I believe that from understanding your own unique, real self, then you can design your own unique, real story. Again, from setting up your own unique, real statement and then having that riddled with your own unique, real stance. All spells yours. And then it really goes into the vision, mission, values of your life. And then from there, you use the tool that speaks to you the most. And then the work isn't so much work. So for me, I love great conversations, and I love insightful conversations, and I love helping others pursue excellence. This is the medium I've chosen. So I wouldn't suggest that anyone says, hey, I want to build a network and I'm going to do what he did, because if you don't love it, it's going to be challenging to keep doing it.
Even if you love it, you go through periods where it's challenging.
Exactly.
Angel, I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
Success for me is... So there's this triangle that I've built my life around, and it's built with God at the pinnacle, and then myself, focus on myself, so that I'm able to then focus on my wife, and then my family, and then my friends. If I'm not able to do that, then I do not consider myself successful. Success for me is being able to live a life where I can choose to do that.
Sounds like freedom, but you have your priorities. You know what's important to you.
Correct.
So, Engel, what's next? I've heard you talk about a trip to Europe maybe in your future.
Yes, so the goal for 2021, it was the goal for 2019. What are we in? No, okay, so the goal for 2020, my apologies. I'm going too fast here, folks. So the goal for 2020 is Europe. We were going to do that in 2019, which would have been right around June. However, we decided to become pregnant and decided then that will be our focus. So Amanda is due in August, and after the third is born, we hope to be able for June next to be in Europe. I've interviewed like over 700 people in Europe. So yeah, that's the next trip goal. Other than that, I'm reconnecting right now with previous podcast guests, and that's been exciting, Andy. Like, we've had just about 4 thus far reconnect, and I'm like the podcast accountability partner now, asking them, have you done what you said you were going to do, and how has it been? And that's been really exciting to have those conversations. And again, building bridges through meaningful conversations is the core idea, isn't it?
Well, it's so cool to see that one 12-minute conversation actually continues and ends up being so much more.
Yeah, I'm excited about that as well. The traveling part, I love to travel. I love to drive as well. I hear in Europe, many stick shifts. I don't think I want to drive stick shift for long though, so let's hope I get an automatic vehicle. But I love to drive, and I love the adventure, and my wife loves it as well. The next journey, the children being there is non-negotiable. They need to be there to experience this. That was the one regret, not having my 2 boys there. In hindsight, they would not have been able to weather that storm, because it was rather traumatic moving that many times, and the places we needed to stay at times. So now we're prepared for what is required for Europe, and having them there is definitely going to be another adventure.
Well, congratulations on the expected birth coming up and expanding your family. Thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary story and journey with all of us. And can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can find out more about what you're doing at 12-Minute Convos and where they can find you online?
Sure. 12minuteconvos.com is a great place to be. The Facebook, I was attempting not to do the Facebook page. Unfortunately, I have to, because we're maxed out on friends, and I dislike having to remove people from there. So the Facebook page is there. That's building up now. But LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I love LinkedIn. I really do love LinkedIn. So that's the place I would point people to. Thanks,
Engel. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Andy. You are an inspiration.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? Engel is such fun and an interesting guy. He's intense and yet laid back at the same time. Who knew that combination could exist? I loved how Engel gave us the true story about how he got discouraged when trying to execute his goal of recording so many podcast interviews. Whether you're a podcaster, an entrepreneur, or just trying to maintain a basic household budget, there are going to be ups and downs. Just remember this: don't get discouraged, keep at it. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by posting in the private Inspired Money Makers Facebook group at inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and learned something that you can apply. Thanks again for joining me on this mission. The music you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.